Yeah, so how did Tim and I meet? Well, actually, we weren't supposed to meet. I was invited at the very last minute to be my girlfriend's date, one of my best friends from high school. She was a bridesmaid in a wedding, and this guy right here was a groomsman. So he grew up with the groom. You can tell that piece of the story.
Yeah, so just like she said, I went to the wedding by myself. I was a groomsman. I noticed this good-looking blonde come through the door. We, exchanged numbers.
Went on our first date the end of December 28th, and kind of didn't separate after that.
The morning of the incident, I had arrived home from work earlier than normal. Went to bed, just like I do every other time I come home, until I was awoken about 6:45 in the morning to her gasping for air and kind of, I could obviously see something was wrong. And I immediately checked for a pulse because she was gasping and then went motionless, lifeless. In the dark, trying to fumble, I got my cell phone, was dialing 911 as I started compressions on the bed. So I was talking on the cell phone to 911 as I was getting her onto the floor so I could start with true CPR. The first responders, them being the Sparta police, and they hooked up the AED. They started their CPR. They administered 3 shocks, and on the 3rd shock, they got a heart rate back. And then the medics arrived, and they were able to transport her to the landing zone, which then she was flown to Morristown Hospital. And going through my mind, I was just thinking there was a lot of ups and downs. There was no heart rate, then we had a heart rate. So it was like, oh, there's some hope. And then there was no breathing, so it was down. So then, you're thinking you got hope because she's got a heart rate, but now there was a lot of emotions up and down at that point. It took a toll on you, it's after, I can remember after the fact, it was like I ran a marathon. Like I was just, the adrenaline was just like, after my job was done of the CPR and she was in the ambulance and now it's out of my hands, which is good because she's in much better hands. So the teamwork that went on was incredible. I think they call it the chain of survival. So it starts with the, kind of me with the initial CPR, and then the Sparta police show up and they took over the CPR, got the AED attached, and then they got her to the landing zone. It just shows that people outside of hospitals have a very important role because you have to get to the hospital first for them to do their work. So the first responders, the AEDs, the people trained in all different, even athletic clubs, and it's very important to have people not in the hospital, in the medical field, trained so that the person has a chance, because everything we've heard is like minutes don't count, seconds count.
Yeah. It took me a while to wake up in the hospital. I was in and out of it for a while. I have kind of flashbacks of different moments. I think I remember, how did this happen to me? I'm only 29 and I've only been 29 for a week. I was definitely shocked and confused. Didn't understand, again, how this could happen or why it could happen, but I knew I felt fine, which only added to the confusion. Everybody around me was very doting and very caring and very worried, and that was so great, but so overwhelming at the same time. It felt like a dream what had happened to me, and then to wake up and find out that it was real was just shocking. So my care at the hospital was outstanding, and that probably added to why I felt so fine, because they made me feel fine. They made me feel comfortable. I had the best nurses. I had the best doctors. I can't name everybody because there was just so many of them. It was outstanding. And even all the way down to the women who, would deliver your breakfast and your lunch and your dinner, and the attendants who came in to empty your trash. Everybody there was just so caring and wanted to be so helpful, and they all were extremely helpful. So ever since the event, life has changed, but also hasn't changed. We've gotten back to our normal selves, and we don't think about the event that often anymore, but we do have the reminder of the defibrillator. And thankfully, we also have the distraction of a wedding that we've been planning for the past year. We get married in just over 2 weeks, and couldn't be more excited about that. And we're also planning a honeymoon to Italy. So, I think it's just life as a married couple is what we've been focusing on, and what life after that will look like. We're just happy to get to do it and continue down this road together. But it's also taught us not that we didn't appreciate life, because we always enjoyed life and appreciated life, but we definitely do it a little bit more now than we did before this. We don't take any days for granted. We don't take each other for granted, our friends, our family. You know, we want to live life to the fullest, and we're not going to let this slow us down.
Just all in all, I just thank everybody from Atlantic Health, our friends and family. You guys have all been so supportive, and I really appreciate it.
You know, I have a mother who's an occupational therapist and works at Morristown Hospital, and so I've certainly heard enough about, you know, the network of care hospitals provide and their other facilities from rehab and outpatient and everything. It's, you know, I've never had to think too much about it because I've always been a very healthy person. But to know that that network is in place is certainly reassuring, and, you know, I might have taken it for granted beforehand just because I never had to think about it, but, you know, not just for me, but for loved ones, and knowing that that's there is certainly very reassuring, and yeah.